Welcome to Fearless and Abundance. Welcome to Fearless and Abundance. This workshop is more than just information sharing. It's transformational if you allow yourself to show up with a beginner's mindset. And pick what I share of tools and insights, stories, and listen to them with new ears and eyes. And see where in your life does this happen for you as well? Or might happen for you. And what if you did it in a different way? Maybe following a bit how I did it. If you do that, I promise you or guarantee you that you are creating a very strong launch pad for your 2025. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Camilla Calberg and welcome to those in the room. I know we had some challenges signing up, so it's good that we're also here on YouTube together. My name is Camilla Calberg and I'm a business consultant helping leaders like you get unstuck, find more meaning in life and more happiness in life, and allowing yourself just to be you. And that, in essence, is what Fearless and Abundance is all about. I'm going to share with you my story. And the more I talk about Fearless and Abundance, the deeper we dive in on these topics in my own communities, the stronger patterns I see. I'm going to share those with you as well. So blending it in a beautiful way to help you level up, to help you get unstuck, to help you show up to serve others. Let me ask you this question. From a scale from 1 to 10, how fearless are you right now? How fearless are you right now? A lot of people I serve and where I was myself a couple of years ago is that they give away power to other people with higher ranks. For most of my career, I gave away power. I came up with a taker's mindset. I came up with a victim mindset. I showed up with, I'm here to take a job. And I certainly, my body's responding now, I certainly feel less than. Even though I had my MBA, I had an amazing track record. But there was this invisible ceiling of giving away power to people who had a higher title or who filled that role so they were the power, right? Can you relate? And it made it so that they were God. We have to ask them. And then if they say no, well, we step back. In that moment, we step back, we've given away power. If you are anything like me, mid-career or the best chapter in your career, you're not here to play small. You're not here to forget all your wisdom, to forget your track record. That's not why you're here. And that's certainly not what this is all about. Fearless and Abundance, this year's workshops, is all about helping you understand why people show up with dominance when they're not inviting you in as a peer. And also why you play small. And it's all set with love. But we have to really acknowledge where we play small, where we don't own our power. Yeah, does that make sense? Drop it in the comments below. Let me start from the start. For most of my career, I gave away power to people with higher ranks, and I think there's something that we've been taught, we learn in school to obey, to take orders, and that just follows. When we are in high school, when we're in university, it's listen to the teacher, and the teacher, right, is right. But that's not how society is now. There's two groups, right? There's the society still is run by the old rules, and then we have another society where we show up as peers. And in that bubble, in that group, companies thrive, they flourish, people thrive. And there's just really happiness, and people really enjoy life. Really enjoy life. But this big pool of people where we are run by old society norms, then we give away power. We come up with a taker's mindset. What's in it for me? We run because we run for external validation and recognition. That's not what they do over here. And it's really a profound difference. Most of my life, I was in this pool. I was here. I gave away power because that is what I learned. That's the only thing I knew how to show up. And in reflection, my results were never matching what I was really capable of, because I would show up with a taker's mindset, with a pleaser's mindset, with that of seeking, am I good enough? Is this result what you want? And I was so an operator. The operator mindset, if you have followed me for a while, you know the difference between the operator mindset and the really transformational mindset. The operator mindset, and I'm right now is but practice showing up in my mind is that, but we have two worlds, and I want to draw them because they're actually very powerful. This is the taker mindset, and that's also where we have the ego. We're ego driven. There's nothing wrong when we talk about ego, but ego stops you from showing up in the fullest capacity, in your fullest capacity. And then we have here the giver's mindset. That's also where we have fearless, abundance. Here, the taker mindset, that's also where we seek external recognition. And validation. That's where title matters. Here, title doesn't really matter. Here's showing up as peer, peer to peer. Peer to peer. Like giving value. So for most of my life, my career, I was in this taker mindset. I have, if you've read up on LinkedIn and my career, my story, I have had a wonderful career. And thanks to an amazing manager, executive in BP, who saw the potential opportunity in me, potential in me. And that was where everything changed for me back in 2001. But I still showed up with an operator mindset. It's also where the operator came in. I was a really good operator, but I was still an operator because I had respect, more than respect. Like I would take orders, right? There's a lot of works coming up right now. I would take orders. I would obey. And when we obey, we give away power. But there's something that didn't work for me when I was in this world. Under the surface, I was unhappy. I worked long hours. Yes, I traveled the world, as I wrote to my community the other day. I traveled the world. I traveled Europe for 10 years. I don't know if you've done that, but I got really sick and tired of that. But I was very operational. And I gave away power to a certain extent that if people would think of me that I was not good enough, I would take it really personal. And it impacted, in this world, it impacted my mental health. Obviously, it also, with hindsight, impacted my results and my overall well-being. Subconsciously, I knew I was sick and tired of being in this world. But how to break free, that I didn't know. I also knew that I started to own my own values. I started to own who I wanted to serve as an external advisor. I also started to really form my ideas and boundaries of what organizations I want to serve, who I want to say yes to, and who do I not want to say yes to. And that put me, or pushed me with love, on an amazing journey. And that's a journey I want to share with you today. Because what I have, the transformation I've experienced, and still break through and enrich on a daily basis, is too good not to share with you. There's so many downloads right now. I want you to drop in this comment. We got some comments on YouTube. Drop also comments here. Why are you, what's showing up when you are in this world? Because I guess that's the reason why you're here. You're in this taker world, right? Where I was for most of my life. And that of impacting my mental health, was so stood out as something I'm not trading in my life anymore for what I have. But nobody in my circle had ever invested in themselves. Nobody in my circle had never talked about leveling up and developing your mind. I subconsciously was ready for that because I wanted a different life. I wanted to experience something different in life. And I was asking myself, what else? How else can I enjoy life? And still making good money, still serving, and still giving the best to my family and myself, obviously. I love traveling, I love working, I love meeting people. How can I combine that? And what I experienced and where I'm now, and I'm still developing this, my experience of being in that very different world where I every day push my boundaries to be fearless. In my old world, and I continue to level up, I would be so fearful, as I mentioned early on. I would really give everything to my fears. My negative stories, I would make them the truth. I didn't know. I didn't have the wisdom. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the insight to question what I was telling myself to be true. I didn't have it. I didn't have those tools. I didn't have that toolkit. I didn't know what energy was. I didn't know that I actually absorbed other people's beliefs and emotions and made them my emotions and made them my dominant world, my dominant thoughts, I had no idea about that. I had no idea that is a belief. It's just a thought that you think so many times that you start to believe in it. And I didn't know that we could actually, with love, challenge and question, why do you believe that to be true? What if that was different? But I learned it through hard work, repetitions, commitment to level up. And now you are in a good seat because you do not have to spend 7 years to learn what I've learned. You spend 2 hours or maybe even less to learn this. And you can take your life to the next level. So fearful to fearless. What was the first step for me? The first step was to understand how I showed up for myself. What boundaries did I have for myself? What did I tolerate? What did I not tolerate? Why did I tolerate what was not good for me? That self-discovery, that realization was so vulnerable. My body's responding. And so tough and hard to go through. But it's a process you have to go through for you to become fearless. Have to do that psychological assessment of yourself. Who are you really? We do that assessment in one of my communities right now. Who are you really? This is all about how do you react? How do you show up? What do you react to? What do you believe to be true? Right? When do you hide? When do you run away? When do you get aggressive? Da 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 da. Who are you really? Why are you procrastinating? I had a lot of conversations recently about procrastination. This doesn't motivate you. But the thing is, what you procrastinate is the most important task. If you're an entrepreneur, you oftentimes procrastinate the money-making activities, right? We get to really understand why we're procrastinating, and those fears and those limiting beliefs and those stories you tell yourself, this is the reason why you procrastinate. And how you do one thing is how you do everything. That's what I'm thinking about. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So I had to do that self-analysis together with some mentors who could be my mirror, who could give me some tools. And I realized that I had multiple phases, and it took a long while to really discover who I really was. This is deep. Most people, and it's really interesting, I had a conversation earlier today about, I just wish I could be relaxed and be me. That's the best desire you ever have. And we don't want it just to be a wish. We want to be the reality, the new reality. And how to get there is to flip the scripts of everything that you believe to be true, because it's limit you from stepping into your next version, just who you really, really are. So my first step was to understand how I influence and why I influenced the way I influenced. Who am I? And how I influence, is that really how I want to influence? And obviously not, because I'm not here to just continue my life as is. I was on that journey because I felt unfulfilled. I knew I had more to give. I wanted a bigger life. I wanted to give more. I wanted to help more people, which means that by fact, I cannot stand still. That's stagnation, right? So this is step one is that How do you influence? And if you do not do anything with that, if you do not change, you will hit the wall of stagnation. Yeah, does it make sense? Um, anyway, let me just, there was someone who also wanted to join. Okay. All right, to see if one of our members and students are joining us here in the room or on YouTube. Anyway, so if you want to take your life to the next level, is really understanding how you influence today. And we have to do that assessment with honesty and with love. Have to be really honest about how you show up. And there's something that really stood out when I started to study and analyze how I influenced. And that was that of energy. At that point in time, I went through a very challenging season in my life. And when you journey through a challenging season, that is also, in English was that is where you thrive. Well, you don't thrive, but that's why you vibrate on a frequency energy that doesn't set you up for success. And people can feel that energy. And you may have been where I am right now in that unhealthy relationship for so long that I was in that bubble where I was more about thriving, and that no, it was more about surviving than thriving. And when you come from the level of surviving, you have not so much to give from. You have not a cup full, but you have maybe a cup more empty. But when you run on empty, you cannot serve. You have to serve and set yourself up for success first. That's it, full fat. That was when I realized that how I influenced that point in time. I was coming from lack. I was coming from not feeling from feeling less than. I was coming from a I was coming from a perspective, and what do I say? Feel? I don't know. I was coming from the perspective of not feeling fulfilled, and I was certainly coming from the point of view where I craved for more happiness. I was longing for deeper fulfillment in life. I was longing to take my own life to the next level. And I was certainly longing to be in a room with people who really just enjoyed who I was. That's energy. And that's why in our community, we talk about energy, because it's not the topic that is taught in school or in business universities. And maybe you talk about it and you have a training in 1 hour, but that doesn't gonna move your needle. You have to really, if you want to take your life and career to the next level, be so curious about your energy. And yes, it's vulnerable. And we have clients leaving the community because it's uncomfortable. I get it. But we also have clients who stay because they've broken through to the next level by realizing and embracing that this is how I am right now, with tears and with vulnerability. But boy, they level up. And that's what I want to share with you. You do, the current version of you is not the fixed or finite version of you. You have multiple versions of yourself. And when I heard that the first time, I didn't understand. Okay. But where you are right now in life, who you show up as right now in life, is not your fixed set point. It's not finite. It's only finite. It's only fixed if you do not change your inner world, your self-image, and your imagination. What could shift? What can be even better for me? So I did a lot of that work in that first step of influencing. How do I influence? A lot of assessment and a lot of recalibration. What happened, and there was a really, really interesting shift, is that then innovates. Step two of fearless and abundance is that if I allow myself to be just who I am, how do I then serve? And if you followed me, you know, but I want to share this again. Going from the operator mindset, it's transactional, and most people aren't transactional because that's what we learned in school. You're not wrong from coming from that perspective. We all are. Where success is when you shift your mind, and where you shift your mind, so it's not about you, but it's actually about, hey Julie, it's actually about everyone else that you serve. When I was in my step one, where how I influenced, I was so focused on results because that's what I learned. And I could tick the box, tick the box, tick the box. But as I mentioned early on, that I would obey orders. I would serve others. And if people said I was doing it wrong, I took it like I was doing it wrong. And I heard as though I was a failure. And so how I innovated, and this is so, in German is peinlich, but it's embarrassing. But I say that with love now, because the more I work on this, the clearer it gets, this journey, is that how I innovated? It's not really innovation. Maybe I did innovate, did a lot of business development with new technology, but it was within a scheme that other people dictated. And I knew what they wanted, which meant I played against with their rules. I didn't set healthy boundaries for myself. But as I was peeling off layer by layer of who I really want to be, how I want to show up. I had a coaching session earlier this morning, and we were talking about something very different. And I said, well, the way that I learned to draw, this is the way I take notes. The way I learned it was back in 2001 in BP. I was sitting in one of these board meetings and just about to pitch. And I was asked, there was no choice. I had to stand up and just pitch. Even that is very uncomfortable because it feels so safe to sit. But when you stand up, then there is a shift in what you talk about, how you talk it, how you take the room. And suddenly you have a different relationship with yourself. And I realized that if I want to really innovate and allow myself to own the room, I first had to shift who I considered myself to be. When I did that exercise, then I realized that it was not so much, remember the other one here? About the taker's mindset and the ego? When I played within a safe let's call it football field, where the boundaries were set by everyone else. This was my realm of innovation. But then when I allowed it myself to be in that room, to allow myself to ask questions, then suddenly it was not about me wanting to be right, or they didn't listen to me, da-di-da-di-da. Then I would then come from a different set of boundaries, where actually it was not so much me, but it was me serving who I actually have to serve. And that shifted everything for me, how I broke through to my next level of fearless leadership and just being fearless. And the more I break through, the more I just enjoy life, and the more I allow myself to be in the room and feeling worthy to be in the room. Most of my career, my boundaries was determined by other people. People would tell me when I crossed the boundaries, I would be punished for crossing the boundaries, and I had to go back in because that was the zone of safety. Which means that obviously there is a unconscious ceiling of your results, because I don't know what we call it in English, but the field with the cows, and they don't have to cross because that's a electricity. I don't know what we call it in English right now. But this is where the wall of electricity, and that's what I really like, because that takes me back to Hitler. That's not really where I want to go. But other people have set up our boundaries. But if we want to unleash our full potential, then we have to allow ourselves to be in that room. And if people set up boundaries, it is because they are afraid of failing. It has nothing to do with you. So as I was then developing myself and saying, okay, what's the next version of fearless and abundance? Then I really realized how amazing it is to set my own boundaries. Why it was not about driven by fear, minus fear. Oh, my body is responding now. But it's actually adding abundance. And what it means by adding abundance is that I'm here to serve. Here to serve, that's a giver's mindset, right? So can you see that how, and I'm curious about where you are right now. And this, when other people dictate, oh, we are so afraid of crossing that boundaries. In the conversation, I've had a few coaching conversations this morning. I said, but I can't ask that because other people say, don't ask that. Then subconsciously you have absorbed that other person's fear, that other person's limiting belief, that other person's emotions, and suddenly it becomes your boundaries. But that person didn't want those boundaries. So we had to recalibrate so that she has more success. And now the job is, okay, but then who am I then if I am to set my own boundaries? That was so powerful. And in that way, we really show up to innovate and create greater results, because that is only our own boundaries. Then there's healthy boundaries. I would call this unhealthy boundaries. And then healthy boundaries. Then step 3 of my system of fearless and abundance. And the more we go through those steps, the more abundance we got. So abundance goes up, fearless goes up, and results steps into a very different area. Here, influence, innovate, and inspire. Again, how do we inspire other people? Let me go back to this, and I want to share right now. This is also how I create my asset. And I talked about this morning. The way I create is actually to draw. And then I see it with my mentors as well, that the models get deeper and deeper. And I want to call here unhealthy boundaries because it's set by others. Because they are set by others. These boundaries are healthy boundaries. Because they are then set by you. That's the best thing you can do, set by you. That's about living life full out. So when we talk about step 3, it's all about inspire other people. Then we inspire other people if we haven't grown our conscious mind and really did that. Remember, step 1 is about understanding and doing a due diligence of how we influence. Then oftentimes, and I said this with love, we set people up from the perspective of not being greater than us. Oftentimes, that's where we come from ego. We do not inspire people to truly excel. Yes, within my boundaries. And if you do it not the way I do, I want you to do it. It's not how I want you to grow. And most companies, and I think the company is just as strong as individuals, right? How we form our boundaries. But the greatest leaders, they see the individual and the opportunities. And that's in this world where we are givers, where we set other people up for success. And this shifted everything for me in how suddenly I dared to say, but what are you really good at? Or what if you did it a different way? What is your biggest fear right now? Why do you do that? I said to someone this morning, with everything I know, are you not playing small in your bio? I would never have done that if I was only setting other people up to form or conform within certain boundaries. When we want to set people up for success, we come from the point of really wanting to set other people up for success. When we then go from pitching for a job, I have had a couple of job coaching sessions this week. Here's how we can relate this framework from influence, innovate, and inspire. You've probably seen me do this. But then I had this question this morning. This is future hiring manager. And we knew what they wanted to achieve. We thought it was, so far we know that's a clear goal of future. Then there was this challenge that one of my clients faced, and there are quite a few of them this week, is that, but how many questions can I really ask? What type of questions can I ask so they don't think I am annoying, but also I do not just want to be a pleaser? So how do I do that? And the headhunter said, do not ask those questions because it's a bit sensitive, da-di-da-di-da. And so this candidate had taken on the headhunter's fears and limiting beliefs and made her world what we recalibrated was that And that was also the question. I also want to share what I'm really good at. But when we come from that perspective, we come from the perspective of a taker's mindset, and we forget everything about serving. When we want to be fearless, when we want to set other people up for success, we want to be so committed to that future sounds absolutely amazing. But in order for me to help you get there, tell me what is not working right now. Is your current or your as is? As is. And we can, and we should do that. Should is not a highest energetic word, but it's a smart way to do that. Showing up with the attachment or the dedication to serve and be so fearless. And we were role playing. How do you want to ask that question? How do you show up in that meeting? Oh, but then there's this person. But when you are, and I want to ask you this question, I take some notes. Imagine for a moment that you could not fail, that there were no fears. How would you show up in that first interview? How do you show up? And I took her back in time and said, when was the last time that you went into a meeting, you were in the meeting, where you were so, my body's responding now because this is actually deeper, where you're so relaxed, you didn't tell yourself, there was no like competing, sponsoring for the competing for saying, watch out, because they can judge you, you're gonna fail. And she just showed up. And that was the most amazing, innovative discussion. And I said, this is your set point. That is your set point. And that's how you want to show up, whether you're pitching for a new job, whether you're pitching a new project. Come with that relaxed mindset, because you're here to serve. And then she asked, what about my value proposition, what I'm really good at? I said, it's a smart idea to know what we're really good at. But it has nothing to do with value proposition. And I've done loads of value proposition things, pitches in IBM. But that comes from a taker mindset. From a giver's mindset, being really fearless and abundant, has nothing to do with us. Then we come from a place of wanting to set other people up for success. And that would be your case stories. Be so case stories. So we practice that. What are your case stories? What are the pains? Because you're here to take that person to the other side of the bridge. And that's what the fearless and abundance is all about. Being so curious about what is not working right now. What is the current set point? And what does the future hold for that company or that person? It's about the future. If that company doesn't have a future, most likely you don't even want to serve that company. So we have to be so open to talk about the current, the as is, or the set point. Then I got a question. What if this person do not want to answer that question? But is then you go in and audit the recruiter as much as the recruiter audits you. So if they do not want to talk about the current set point, how can you ever tell that it's the right setup for you? It's not a match. And it flipped everything. So remember, we have to focus on the future, which is then transformational mindset. When we're just so curious about, okay, go do that task, that's a taker mindset, and we're operator, but we don't want to. The reason why you're here is that you don't want to be that operator. You don't want to be the implementer. You want to be the creator. And we can only create when we are really, really curious. And it requires us to be relaxed. It requires to be fearless. It requires to be curious and have the courage to ask bold questions because we want to help them get to the future. And I can tell you, and I guarantee when you lean in, my teacup, the more you do this work, the more you just find out, like, who are you really without fears? Where's that? This is here. Where's my heart? The more you start to own your message, the more you start to fall in love with life for what just is, and start to be grateful that, wow, I have another opportunity to pitch myself and to audit gratitude. Is they a right match? Do they have a future and a vision that puts my heart on fire? And if not, they are certainly not up for me. They're not my match. You start to be grateful for all the amazing conversations. And when you start to be grateful, that's the very first step for changing your energy. And then you will pull more opportunities in. The last thing, then when we come from the fearless and abundance perspective and creating more impact, because this is the mindset. Step 4 is all about strategy. It's how to do it. You know your strategies. So that is your strategies, and that comes last. So, and then when we talk about strategies, oftentimes that is a how. I got this question this morning, but I don't know what makes me different, what I'm really good at, because everything can do what I can do. Yes, when we go and look from the how, we have no competitors, but that is the wrong way to look at it. So we did the competency-driven CV mapping. Can you see? Yeah. This is your activities. This is the patterns and the groups. What do you enjoy? And from that, what are the results? Which is only you, because you have no competitors. When you own what you do, everybody can facilitate a meeting. Everybody can write on the wall. Everybody can do that, but they cannot do it with your wisdom, with your insights. So it's the wrong way to say, how can everyone can do what I can do. Yes, that comes from lack mindset when we focus on the how, but not when you know what you're really good at and you are here as a facilitator and take people from where they are to their future. Obviously, there will never be two of you. Obviously, then it's about the energetic match. Is this where I want to be? Does this future serve where I want to be as well? This company culture, does that help me? Do I thrive in here? Do I not thrive in here? There was another question, is that we were talking about that company, the recruiter talked a lot about managing, but this was an exec. If it was all about managing, are you sure that you want to have this job? Because then somebody else, remember the model. Then there's the fixed. If you're about to manage, you operate not within your own boundaries, you operate within other people's boundaries. So we had a conversation about that as well. So when we want to take our career and our life to the next level, we have to really do this with love and honesty and brutal vulnerability. How do I show up today? What is my the current version of me? What are my boundaries? What do I tolerate? And how do I really, really want to show up? Being relaxed, being curious, just here to help other people. And I said it in the beginning, is that this is taking me 7 years. You do not have to spend 7 years to crack this, because I cracked it for you. And even today, it's gone even deeper with those boundaries. Energy matters more. The boundaries, this invisible boundaries, the ceilings. And that's why we feel unfulfilled. That's why we feel we're not seen, that we not get the promotion, because there's other people setting your boundaries. Your job is to allow yourself to be just you. Allow yourself to be just you. What happens? And I lean into this. I did a video that I put out on LinkedIn. I'm going to put it out also on YouTube a little later. But I talked about my word for this year is fearless and abundance. Fearless, I have to do something that gets me out of my zone each and every day. And the more I embrace being fearless, the more I am me. And then the more I reach out to people I would never have reached out to before, just because I'm curious as Camilla. And I'm asking some questions, and I'm detached from the result. I'm completely detached from the result. I'm just curious. And I go in as well as an audit. Is this a match for me, or is it not a match for me? And I never done that. Not in that caliber or on that level of being so detached. But being attached allow you to run your own audition. Are they a match for me or not? And then you can say, thank you. It's good to know. But then you can spend your energy on running for a job that is more a match for you, or running for a client, or for running for a customer that is more a match for who you are. That's about becoming fearless. Returning to, return, I have Elvis in my head right now. Return to center, but you get to actually return to your center. Return to your center. Who you are. Your life will shift. Your happiness will increase, level up. You will be more present in conversations. You will listen more, because you want to set other people up for success. It's nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. Just show up. And I had this conversation the other day. So it just downloaded, so I want to share. I had this conversation the other day with a very successful entrepreneur going on a new stage, and was procrastinated preparation, and was telling himself some stories that if I went on a bigger stage, he didn't feel worthy of being that, because then there would only be 10 people on this stage in a huge event coming up in a couple of months. And didn't really feel that he was a match. And was telling himself that, what if I disappointed anybody? What if my message does not come across? And the fearless, that was not the fearfulness, that you could feel it. And those fears kept him procrastinating, preparing for his keynote. He started doubting and second guessing, was it really worthy of being in that room? Doubting that, what if it just gets black for me when I'm staged? What if? So there was a lot of fearfulness in his body, And we had to crack that open and say, take me back to a moment when you just feel less, or you just relaxed. And how do you connect with people that was all these limitations? I cannot connect because it's so black. But just connect to one. Talk to one person. So the 4 steps I share, that's all replies to every scenario that we have in leadership. Be on it, mirror yourself, and say just who. And I think the biggest work that come up for me this week in preparing for this is that if you were just relaxed, you could not feel, how would you show up? That is, as I say, every teaching I do is like, so we go deeper, but that is like so deep. And then closing, and I want to ask questions, and then we go circling back to the conversation I had this morning. And she said, that's exactly the work I need to do this weekend, is to allow myself just to be relaxed in that conversation. That is her work over the weekend. And that is the work that we want to tap into. Just be you, just relaxed. Because then you vibrate on a different level of energy. You come with love, with curiosity. And you ask that question. And hey, okay, you don't want to answer the question. I do not think that people do not want to answer. I do. If you come from a level of curiosity, relaxed, you bond even better. And I don't think you get that no if you come from a level of not being relaxed. Then you're judging already. And then you don't build trust. Remember, we talked about those this morning. Before trust, people just talk about trust. But trust is born from respect. And you also have to respect yourself that you are in that room. And when you respect other people, it is much easier to, and you know about where they want to go. When you trust them, they trust you. So that's what I wanted to share with you. But this, I think, from first, these boundaries, whose boundaries are you the boundaries that you're working within? Are they your boundaries or someone else's boundaries? And if someone else's boundaries, then why? And let's change that. And I think actually everything is here because when we work within other people's boundaries, we are seeking external validation. We're not trusting ourselves to the level we want to, because that's abundance. Trust yourself. Do not be everyone for everyone else. Be unique. That's star for someone. And when we operate within other people's boundaries, and I've done that most of my career, even in school, so I think most of my life, then we also feel that we're a failure if we are not liked, if we do not belong to the group, because that's again other people's boundaries. But allowing ourselves to just be us. Wow, that's fearless. That is abundance, because then we set our own boundaries. I can feel it in my body. And that's where I put down here the cost of operating for me in this zone. My body is so responding now. Mental challenges, physical challenges, like numbing, maybe there's too much wine, chocolate, feel less than. I could run for love that didn't serve me. I would feel unfulfilled. I felt victimized. I would feel, like I said, less than, but doubting, second guessing myself. This was not the life I wanted, but I was, I was marinated into obeying to other people's boundaries. And I said no to that. I didn't know how to do that. And that's why I started investing in myself. And that's where now I was sharing that system where actually I set my own boundaries of how I want to show up. Yes, it requires exercise. It's not a, one of my mentors, Ruben, says it's a long night's sleep. It took him 14 years to get to where he is. Put in the reps. But this is freedom. This is abundance. And you can, not only would you take your life to a very next level, very, very different society level, but you will also have more freedom. I just create conversations, you build relationships, you'll take your wealth, you will suddenly opportunities will open up and show up that you never expected because you see wealth from a very different perspective. Because suddenly it's your boundaries. You have no boundaries. The sky is unlimited. There is no limit. The limit in this one is other people's limits. It's a very good example of the coaching call. One of them I had this morning. Someone else's limit was suddenly has suddenly traveled into my client's world and made it her limits. And that was a straitjacket for her. I hope you can see that. Ooh, this was deeper. Sometimes it's deeper than I planned. Gigi, you are here in this room. Welcome. Go on. What shows up?
Thank you, Camilla. I'm sorry I came a little bit late, but as usual, I'm very grateful for all these insights, your steps 1 to 4, uh, you know, um, influence, inspire, and I love the reminder that I mean, many of us who listen into you, like myself, we've been working in different environments, both at home, in our relationships, and specifically for me here, we're talking about here in work, and they set boundaries, and you're totally right. Some of these boundaries limit, what we do. It's almost like the factory foreman telling you what to do. Now, one of the things I am immediately aware of is that if you spend enough time, like maybe decades, 10, 20 years, and you talk about 7 years, 14 years, whatever, working that boundary, and you want to break out of that boundary, those boundaries are not so easy. They are like strongholds because they have, for the last 10 years, defined how you work, almost like this stove is very hot, you must not touch it. And maybe there's a lot of truth there, but the truth can be, if you like, hijacked into a falsehood, like, no, do not do that. And nobody asks why. Because because they gave the example that if you put your hand on the fire, it will burn you. Try it. And it's true. But that truth can be hijacked for a falsehood. And I'm very aware when you speak about boundaries that I need to go back and review some of those things, which, because in our modern world, technology has changed the way we behave and live and also become productive. And you may remember when in the old days, when before we had digital news, use computer to print newspapers, we had typesetting, and people were not happy about changing.
So let's zoom into you and your development. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the point I'm making here is that those boundaries, maybe once upon a time in 1920, 1924, were relevant, but in 2024 or 2025, it is no longer relevant. We need to be agile to be able to move on.
Yeah.
And our
And
mindset.
hang on, because those boundaries are only formed by other people's beliefs.
Yes.
So as we were drawing this and you were in the room, that was this, it got clearer and clearer for me that we conform, if we are factory operator and worker, we conform to other people's boundaries, what we can and we cannot do.
Yeah.
This is where freedom lies.
Yeah.
It's your own boundaries, and you don't want to. So why do you not? What if you flip that script, right? The fear holding you back. Yeah. But this is where you become fearless. Mm. And I don't know if you were in the room when I said that, but I lived most of my life in that zone. Mm. It took me, taking me 7 years to break through and understand all about other people's boundaries became my boundaries. What I believe to be true is just because it's a thought and people think that to be true. But very few things are the truth. Yeah. And that's what I share in this one. You don't, it doesn't have to take you 7 years. It took me 7 years, but now you actually got to get the model.
Yeah. No, I like it very much about the two circles about, other people's boundaries and your own, which leads to freedom. I like that concept a lot. I'm also very mindful that breaking out of boundaries that you've become comfortable is not a very easy one step. And I'm not trying to stop myself. I'm saying, look, it's like climbing a small hill is easier than climbing a big mountain, right? So we can't ignore the physical evidence. And sometimes we have to break down those strongholds step by step. And it needs to be, we need to do a bit of homework, if you like, to say, okay, those boundaries that I live with and maybe become comfortable with, they're not serving my purpose, but I really need to just break out before I become fearless. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah.
100%. 100%. This takes time. It's easy to say, and some people say, okay, just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. Mm. It's not that easy, and it's certainly not easy when we don't have someone who can hold up the mirror. But the more persistent and committed you are to your own journey, suddenly the easier it is to quantum leap, to get into that. And that, I think you're just so spot on, Chidi, because breaking through what has become what I call your uncomfortable comfort zone. Mm-hmm. Most people stay stuck where they are because the ego does not like the unknown.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we stay here even though it's where we do not feel fulfilled.
But I think this also brings me to a kind of phraseology that we use a lot where I am in England, which is great. We now have a plan, because breaking up from fearfulness into fearlessness. You say it earlier. You say it's easy to say, but we need a plan to break out. And coincidentally, just this morning, I was actually asking myself something because I must confess, I got very annoyed with a phrase that I've heard many times before, and I do not know what triggered that phrase. And the phrase is, and I'm sure some of your listeners will know this, someone said repeatedly, if it's not broken, don't change it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yeah, it might not be broken, but it's still not working, is it? And I'm thinking, but you laugh because I can see you understand why I got very annoyed, because if it's not broken, don't change it. And I'm thinking, well, it's definitely not broken, but it certainly isn't working either. So we have the best of the worst situation because it's the only thing that you say works, because that's a boundary and you're not prepared to change it. Yep, you're not prepared to change it, and you're building it even more strongly with the same material that stops me from breaking out. So I thought, no, I'm so just within the second I said, no, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it. There's no way I'm going to use a criteria that is not broken. There is another criteria, which is freedom. So I changed the criteria for decision making, which is, if it's not broken, don't change it. No, I will change it. So what was the reason? Not that because it's not broken, but it's not working. That's a very different sentence.
Yeah.
So I think this is why I was so aligned with the boundaries and how sometimes it's quite difficult if you're not looking outside if effectively the box. Yeah, that's a true story, by the way. I genuinely was thinking about it this morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Write a post on that. I think how many times haven't I heard it? It's not broken, don't change it. But that comes for the people not having like the cultivated the mind of what we really want. Remember that going from being an operator and just doing it to really understand where we want to be. People do not have. I think it's a brilliant. Maybe it's a universal statement. Don't fix it if it's not broken. But hang on, that is coming from a limited and a fixed mindset. I love that. I mean, I love every time we're in room together because you bring something that is unique, but it's so true. And that is the unknown, but they don't ask the right question, right?
Yes, yes. That exactly is the antidote to innovation, because innovation means that you have to change something because you feel that although it's working, it's not optimal. Until the laws of physics say you cannot do it, then fair enough, But in many of the things that we do, the laws of physics do not govern it. It's like, almost like, can you love somebody even more? Well, of course, the answer is yes. It just depends on what kind of situation, because so all I can say is that it's universal, because it's human nature to be comfortable in those old boundaries set by others, because then they take the responsibility, sometimes they take the blame, and we're cushion. But actually, to be free, clearly there is some risk. You could be attacked, but if you're relaxed and show up and be relaxed, yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting there's just one way and one boundary, which is why there's others boundaries, and there's Camilla's boundaries, and there's cheeky boundaries. I like that a lot. That freedom to choose. Yeah.
And the boundaries, maybe I don't know, going outside. I just want to circle back to your point, but boundaries are here to be pushed, expanded, right? Exactly. Because boundaries still keep you small. Because when you grow, when you level up, there will be new boundaries. When we feel that, okay, now I'm the next level and I'm ready to ascend, I feel, because you have more wisdom. Okay, what is then? But then if you set up in this context, the healthy boundaries, that you're just showing up and curious and ask the bold question, if it's not broken, don't fix it. It's like, why so? Like, I mean, are we heading in the right direction, or could we do it differently? Could we do it smarter, right? That's about having the healthy boundaries in that. Yeah, thanks. There was something coming up. But this, I think this is about, that's I think when we went together in another room, is that, remember, people do not know the end goal. Really own the end goal, because if it's not broken, don't fix it. But that is the wrong reflection. Is that how can we optimize it so that we can maximize our output?
Yeah. I mean, like with many things, some of those, that statement, if it's not broken, don't change it. That there is a lot of truth there. And in as much as the others boundaries, there's also a lot of benefits there. And I always remember when I was in junior school, primary school, and we played games. The basketball court, the net was always very high. The football pitch was always very big. And I remember going back to the school when I was much older, a big teenager, and I thought, wow, I can just put the ball into basketball net because I'm as tall as it, and the football pitch, it's like wow, I can just walk across in 2 steps. But those boundaries when you're little made a great sense because the, our little feet are too small to run so much. So I want to value those boundaries, maybe set by others, but realize that the benefit was for a different reason. If you want to be free, to be innovative, to be able to influence and inspire, you need to understand that there is an option to move out. Because then only then I think can you grow and then be fearless. Because I think coming back to your top, that's what you want to do, to be fearless, to say, well, it's like it's okay to change. It's yeah.
And in order for us to take our career to that next level where we feel even more fulfilled, we have to acknowledge the boundaries that we operate within right now.
Mm. Yeah.
Right. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. If we have 100 things, then maybe that's not the top one, right?
Yes.
But even here in these boundaries, let me give you another example. And that's where it comes down to really be cautious and conscious aware who you choose to work with. Is that if I worked with someone who said had a limiting belief of, I do not want to stream and go on YouTube. Then suddenly I would adopt her world, and I adopted those boundaries.
Yeah.
But then I had to say, who am I really? How do I want to do that? And I had to find some other who can help me cross those boundaries. So I become fearless and I spread my message. The same goes for you, where you want to go and convey your message, share your message with a wider group. Is that who those beliefs, those boundaries, where you are right now, who shape those boundaries for you or against you, right? Because for you, it's a growth. Against you, then for you or to you, to you, right? There's a little of language right now, but who set that boundaries? And oftentimes, where we come from is that other people have set those boundaries, but oftentimes to protect themselves, to the C-suite, maybe.
Yeah.
Don't do that, right? And we get to be aware of that, and to acknowledge that is boundaries set by their own ego and fears. But anyway, how true is that? And they limit us. Those boundaries limit us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Camilla, it might be worthwhile, maybe, in a future session, touching on how do we engage the courage within, because it's a personal decision, to evaluate the situation, identify exactly where the boundaries are that are stopping us, and then breaking into a situation where you create the boundary. Because like I said, like we agreed, it's not so easy if someone has been working in that kind of environment for many, many years, because then it becomes part of, without realizing it, when someone says, don't do that, and then you don't do it. And it's a subconscious, unconscious limitation.
Sure
And
is.
we need to also understand what are some of the tools that we can pick up, say, from you and your perspective about how to break out, because saying it is a plan. It's like, yeah, that's great. That sounds really good. So again, coming back to you, how do we do it, right?
Yeah.
So those tools are really important. And they could be simplistic things like, a change in kind of like stop, pause, reflect, whatever. It could be as simple as that.
And I love that you bring it up. And it seems so easy, those tools, but they are not.
Yeah.
As sometimes the simplicity easy thing is the most difficult thing to apply, right, and embody. Because then because you're so right, is that we heard it and it's just become part of our operandus modus, right? Or operandi modus is that I just don't do it, and we don't do it, and we don't even question, maybe just 2 or 3 days later. why is that we didn't do it? And that's where it requires us to slow down.
mm,
We
mm,
can do another workshop on that. It's a good in the Fearless and Abundance. I have also about asking bold questions. Was
mm,
doing some teaching on that. But
mm,
it's really about being, and I also had another client, is that of feeling your intuition. But
mm,
don't do it. It's like maybe you know deep within that stuff, why shouldn't we do it? But it's like, okay, we don't do it. But deep within, it's like, this is so wrong that we didn't do it.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, your session today, right now, has also made me think about, because your theme about fearlessness and abundance, is clear. We've some of us, me here, have been on some of those courses of fearfulness, but today you brought in the opposite of fearlessness, which is fearfulness.
Mm.
And whilst you're talking, I began to ask myself, what are some of the habits that I have that could be classified in that category of fearfulness, like don't do this. Look, we never do this. And now I'm beginning to ask, like, well, why not? Because someone said so. Now that is a category of fearfulness. Like, fearfulness to who? Is that my original fear? I've just inherited it, and it's nuts. It's insane. Why am I fearful of that? And I'm now thinking, as actually, I don't have a, like we in the
Yeah.
UK like to say, I don't have a problem with that. But the way I behave, you would think I have a problem with that. And so actually, fundamentally, I don't have a problem, have it, right? So I think again, it gives us the opportunity to ask ourselves, what is holding us back? If you think it's because of some fearful tag, then we need to spend some time, a few minutes, looking at it and say, no, 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 it's fine, chill, that's fine, no problem.
Yeah. And I want to close this by saying, I love how you brought it up because oftentimes our beliefs are not really our beliefs. Our limitations are not our limitations.
Yeah.
Some of them are, right? Because what will people think? But maybe that's it, that don't do that because then they will think you are stupid, or don't do that, or don't say that because then you show that you do not know what this is all about, right? This, right? And then we start to shrink. But oftentimes, like, it's not oftentimes, but at least some of our behaviors and our beliefs are not our own beliefs.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to actually understand that.
Yeah.
Who is talking right now? Is you or is your mom? Okay. Maybe my mom. That resonated. Right? And that oftentimes, right? So there's a lot we can work on. But that to starting somewhere, like even now you start tracking, what are my fearful behaviors? Why do I do what I do?
Mm, mm,
What's a shift is a very good start. Yeah.
mm.
So I want to thank you for being here in this room today where people sign but you never know who's showing up, and I love that you are here. Also thanks to people who are watching on even live or on our restreaming. And I wanted to, there's probably a free training coming up next week on a topic that we're going to go deeper in our leadership blueprints. That's a topic coming up, a teaching on that next week. I'm just going to see some things I have to, like private life matter, how to organize that. And then the Fear Leadership Blueprint is coming up. The price has actually been reduced. If you haven't noticed that, it's $199 for 3 days. And then level up for or invest more if you want the VIP package, but it's only for $199. And the price goes up to $222 on Monday next week. So it's a really good price. Workbook is coming out. Q&A call do we have? 1 month after. Private call. So I'm super excited for that. And I think that's it. Anything that you want to, Chidi, what is one of your biggest takeaway from our session today?
Yeah, I think the distinguishing from the boundary is clear. Everybody's heard of it. But the trying to distinguish between the boundaries set by others through historical situations to setting your own boundaries, and then saying, like, you know, even if you adopt someone else's boundaries, just make sure it's your own because you believe in it, and then you have freedom to operate. That others will say, oh yeah, it's always my idea. Great, fantastic, I'm chilled, it's your idea, but deep down I know I'm operating freely within the same, because it's like you don't really also want to kind of like have a kind of like completely weird, totally left field idea, because even you yourself will laugh at yourself, right? Because we are brought up in a certain way, right? So I think just really reviewing the constraints, because ultimately we want to be free, we want to be innovative, and we want to have impact, and we want to do all that in a chill, relaxed way. But if you think those boundaries are people setting the limits and watching you, and if you kick the ball out of those boundaries, you are seen as a failure, then actually that's not so good. So I think that's been very good for me, distinguishing those two different circles, their boundaries and my boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And no, via that, I love that your reflection of the boundaries. If it's not so good, here, flip the script.
Yeah.
And what could that script be then that is not so good? What could it be for you? Instead of saying it's not so good, what would you say instead?
Um, I don't know. I mean, flip the script. It's like, those boundaries don't, it doesn't serve my purpose right now. It's that would be what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Or what also showed up for me is that, wow, this is an opportunity to grow.
Yes. That's a more positive way. You're totally right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because suddenly you connected with those limiting beliefs, that boundary. So
Mm.
that's not working. No, but this gives me an opportunity to break through.
Yeah. Mm.
And do it with fear, because curious is to doing with fear. Fear is going to, because as you mentioned, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to leave what you know, and the body does not want the unknown. Body pulls you, and the ego pulls you back. But and the more reps you put in, then suddenly you start to feel comfortable in your new skin, and then you start creating it. This is actually quite fun. I promise. First time I went live, it wasn't fun at all. Now I do it without scripts. And I read it up, and I have pages. I was so nervous. But as you start to own your message, it's just like, but you have to fail. You have to do it. And even though because you're on the other side, there's something even better waiting for you.
Mm. Well done, Camilla, because it really shows, and obviously, all of us are at different stages, different phases of the journey. Like today, I'm revisited this idea of like the boundaries, and this was something that I hadn't thought of before. And maybe in a week's time, when I think like, let's break free. Let's not hastily set up your own boundaries, because I'm happy to kind of like explore a new world. Like I have no idea how far this road goes. I don't have a map, and let's just be curious. I'm excited about the journey ahead. Yeah. And I think that would be a more positive way to say, well, until I have a map, I won't be traveling. No, I'm not doing that. I will be traveling.
I love that. And your word for this year is breakthrough, right?
That's correct. Yes.
You can breakthrough. You already done that.
Mm.
It was amazing to have you here.
No, thank you for the invitation. I like I say, I got the timing wrong, but I think I got through just in time, so that's good. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
you're welcome. All right, so enjoy your Friday, and I'll see you again soon.
Righto. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Okay. Have a good weekend too. Bye
And
bye now.
you. Bye.